When a father passes away, his youngest son inherits the family home and inheritance after dedicating himself to caring for his ailing dad. But when his siblings demand equal shares of the inheritance, a fierce confrontation erupts. Was he in the right for refusing to give them equal shares? We are about to find out what happened in this story, but if you like stories like this one, don't forget to like and subscribe. Liam, the youngest of 5 siblings, loved growing up in a busy home filled with laughter. Family dinners were loud and lively, with everyone gathered around the table, sharing stories and jokes. But as time passed, things began to change. Liam's older siblings, Sarah, Michael, Emma, and David, got caught up in their own lives. Sarah moved to a big city to follow her dreams, Michael focused on his career, Emma spent her time raising her kids, and David drifted off into his own world. With each passing year, their visits home became less frequent, and the warmth of family gatherings faded away. Then came the news that shattered their world: their mother passed away suddenly from a heart attack. The funeral was heartbreaking, but once it was over, the siblings returned to their busy lives, leaving their father, Tom, alone in the house that once echoed with joy. As the months went by, Tom's grief became heavy. Liam watched as his father grew distant, spending hours sitting alone in his favorite chair, staring blankly at the wall. It hurt Liam to see the strong man he once knew turn into a shadow of himself. Things took a turn for the worse when Tom had a stroke. Liam sat by his father's hospital bed, feeling scared and helpless. The doctors talked about recovery, but the reality of their situation sunk in. This was when they needed each other the most, but his siblings were nowhere to be found. Liam reached out to his siblings, hoping they would come together to support Tom. But as he called each of them, he heard excuses. Sarah was too busy, Michael couldn't take time off, Emma had her hands full, and David was lost in his own world. Each excuse felt like a blow, and Liam realized he was left to handle everything alone. Determined to help his father, Liam stepped up. He became Tom's caregiver, learning how to manage medications, help with therapy, and prepare meals. It was overwhelming, but he pushed through. Each small victory, like Tom managing to sit up or sharing a smile, felt like a win. As weeks turned into months, the reality of his siblings' absence became clearer. It hurt to know they had chosen their own lives over their father's needs. Yet, Liam understood that everyone was dealing with their own grief in their own way. One evening, after a tough day, Liam sat with Tom, who was gazing out the window. "Do you remember our camping trips, Dad?" Liam asked. Tom nodded, a faint smile breaking through his sadness. "You always wanted to catch the biggest fish," but as the days wore on, the loneliness of caring for Tom weighed heavily on Liam. He wished for his siblings to step up and show their father that they still cared. Yet, as time passed, it became clear they were unlikely to change. One day, while cleaning the house, Liam discovered a box of old family photos. He sat on the floor, flipping through the pictures and feeling a deep sense of loss. Each image reminded him of a happier time when they were all together. Even after agreeing to be there for their father, Liam's siblings still didn't show up. They promised to help, but their lives remained busy and disconnected from their father's needs. As Tom's health worsened, it became clear that he needed constant care. The once strong man now required assistance for everyday tasks, and Liam felt the weight of that responsibility heavy on his shoulders. Liam struggled to maintain a balance between work and caring for his father. Each day began with early mornings spent preparing meals and helping Tom get dressed, followed by rushed afternoons at the office. He tried his best to stay productive, but it felt like a losing battle. The stress was relentless, and he was constantly worried about his father being alone for too long. Liam thought he was managing until one fateful afternoon when he was called into a meeting with his boss. The atmosphere was tense, and Liam's heart raced as he took a seat. "Liam, we need to talk about your performance," his manager began gently but firmly. "We've noticed a decline in your work, and it's becoming a concern." Liam listened, his heart sinking. They discussed missed deadlines and lack of communication. He had hoped they would understand, but it felt like they were running out of patience. They had offered support, even counseling, believing that the loss of their mother and the strain of caring for Tom were affecting him. But now, with his performance slipping further, it was clear that something needed to change. After the meeting, Liam returned home, overwhelmed with worry. He couldn't afford to hire someone to care for his father full-time, but he also couldn't leave him alone. That evening, he made the difficult decision to contact his siblings again, not to ask for their time, but to seek their financial help. He typed a heartfelt message explaining his situation. "Dad needs constant care, and I can cover half the cost of hiring someone, but I need help with the rest. Please, can you pitch in? It would mean so much." He sent the message and waited, hopeful that at least one of them would respond. Days passed with no replies. Liam checked his phone constantly, feeling a mix of anxiety and frustration. They weren't just ignoring him, they were actively choosing not to engage. It was as if they had shut him out completely, and it broke his heart. The situation worsened when Liam received the call he dreaded most. He was fired. His boss had been understanding for months, but the lack of improvement was too significant to overlook. "I'm sorry, Liam. We really wanted to help you, but we can't keep you on any longer," the HR representative said. Liam felt the floor drop from beneath him. He had tried so hard to juggle everything, but now he was left without a job and with an even heavier burden to bear. With no steady income and a father needing constant care, the weight of his situation was suffocating. He tried reaching out to his siblings again, hoping that this latest crisis would prompt them to finally step in. "I lost my job. I really need help now, more than ever. Dad can't be left alone, and I can't manage everything on my own." Still, there was silence. It was like shouting into a void. The realization hit him hard: his siblings had chosen their lives over their family. It felt as though they had abandoned both him and their father in this difficult time. Desperate, Liam took a deep breath and faced the reality of his situation. He knew he needed to make a change. With his savings dwindling, he began looking for any part-time work he could find. He searched online for local gigs that would allow him to care for his father while still earning some money. As the days passed, Liam juggled the demands of caring for his father and searching for a new job. While he spent most of his time at home, Tom began to notice that something was off. One afternoon, as they sat together, Tom turned to him with a concerned look. "Liam, why are you here all day?" he asked. "Shouldn't you be at work?" Liam took a deep breath. "I got fired, Dad," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. The job was too high pressure. "I'll find something less demanding soon." He hoped his father would take his words at face value, but he saw the concern in Tom's eyes. Even in his weakened state, his father could sense that something was amiss. Liam felt a wave of emotion wash over him. He had been trying to shield his father from the weight of his own struggles, but now the roles felt reversed. Tom continued, "How long have you been fired? How have you been taking care of me without a job?" Liam hesitated, but decided to be honest. "I've been using my savings to manage things. I thought it would be okay for a little while." Tom's expression softened. "Then you should use some of those savings to pay yourself back. You shouldn't feel guilty for taking care of yourself while you're looking for a new job." Liam felt a rush of relief. His father's words opened a door he hadn't even considered. "I can help you manage my finances. You shouldn't have to give up your career just because I'm struggling," Tom insisted. "I have more than enough saved to live comfortably for years. We can even hire someone to help take care of me." Hearing this lifted a weight off Liam's shoulders. The thought that he could look for a job without the constant pressure of finances was a relief he hadn't anticipated. If he had spoken up sooner, he might have avoided so much worry. As Tom handed him control of his savings, Liam felt a surge of responsibility but also hope. The numbers in the account were substantial, enough to ease his fears and give him the freedom to focus on finding a job that suited him better. With a renewed sense of purpose, Liam began to take charge. He set up a budget for both himself and his father, ensuring that they could live comfortably while still saving for the future. He began looking into hiring a caregiver for Tom, knowing that the additional support would ease his burden and allow him to focus on his job search. In the following days, things started to change for the better. Liam found the energy to dive into his job hunt with fresh determination. He updated his resume and applied to positions that aligned with his skills and interests, feeling more confident now that he had a safety net. Tom's health continued to improve, and with the promise of additional help, he seemed to regain some of his old spirit. They enjoyed their time together more, sharing stories and laughter. Liam felt grateful for the new dynamic they had developed, one built on trust and support rather than guilt and worry. Title: The Fragile Threads of Family. That night, after their heartfelt conversation, Liam kissed his father goodnight, feeling a sense of peace. Tom seemed more at ease, as if he had found some solace in the understanding they had reached. Liam went to bed with hope, not knowing it would be the last time he would ever speak to his father. The next morning, the world felt heavy and surreal as Liam woke up to an eerie silence. He instinctively reached for his phone, ready to check messages and start his day, but something felt off. The house was too quiet. When he stepped into the living room, his heart dropped. Tom was slumped in his chair, still and lifeless. Panic surged through Liam. Everything felt like a blur. He called out for his father, his voice trembling, but there was no response. He rushed to Tom's side, shaking him gently, desperate for a sign of life. But deep down, he knew. Tears streamed down his face as the reality of the situation crashed down on him. Tom had left overnight, just when it seemed he was getting better. It didn't make sense, it felt unfair and incomprehensible. After what felt like an eternity, Liam composed himself enough to make the difficult call to his siblings. He fought through the grief, his voice breaking as he delivered the news. Dad! Dad passed away this morning. The silence on the other end felt like a chasm, and he could hear the muffled gasps as his siblings processed the shock. They quickly rallied, promising to come home and help with the arrangements. In those moments, despite his overwhelming sorrow, Liam felt a flicker of gratitude. They were all coming together, ready to support him. The days that followed were a whirlwind of preparations. Liam felt numb as they organized everything, from the funeral to the logistics of laying Tom to rest. His siblings, though initially distant, stepped in to help with the details, ensuring that their father was honored the way he deserved. They shared stories, reminiscing about their childhood and the man they had all loved, even if their connections had been strained. Yet, even in this shared grief, Liam found himself struggling to process the loss. He took some time off from job hunting, focusing instead on healing. He needed to adjust to life without his father, the man who had been his rock, his guide. As the funeral approached, something surprising happened. The siblings started to bond again, sharing moments of laughter interspersed with their tears. They reminisced about their childhood, laughing over silly stories that had been buried beneath years of distance. For a brief time, it felt like they were a family again, united in their grief, but beneath the surface, tension brewed. They were all still dealing with their own feelings of guilt and regret. Liam's heart ached as he watched them navigate this fragile closeness, aware that it could all crumble again at any moment. Little did he know that their father's will would be the catalyst for that inevitable collapse. After the funeral, they gathered at Tom's home to discuss the will. Liam had assumed that it would be a simple matter, but as they opened the documents, the mood shifted dramatically. Tom had left behind specific instructions for his estate, and as the siblings read through them, Liam's heart sank. The will revealed that Tom had set aside a significant portion of his savings for Liam, recognizing the sacrifices he had made in caring for him. But it also detailed a trust fund for the other siblings, with specific conditions attached that they felt were unfair. Sarah, Michael, Emma, and David had expected to inherit equally, and the revelation sparked an argument that quickly escalated. "This isn't right. Dad wouldn't want this," Sarah exclaimed, her voice rising. "He didn't even discuss this with us. Maybe he thought it was better for Liam to have more," Michael countered, trying to maintain some semblance of peace. "He took care of Dad when none of us were around, but that doesn't mean we should be penalized for our lives. We didn't abandon him." Emma shot back, tears streaming down her face. Liam sat in stunned silence, feeling the tension crackle in the air. He had never wanted this money to come between them. "Please, can we just talk about this calmly?" he pleaded. Dad wouldn't want us fighting, but the argument spiraled out of control, with each sibling airing grievances that had festered over the years. Old wounds reopened, and the fragile bond they had formed in their shared grief shattered. The warmth and camaraderie of the past few days vanished, replaced by bitterness and accusations. In that moment, Liam realized that despite their brief reconnection, the rift in their family was far deeper than he had hoped. The money, intended to help him and ease his burden, had instead become a source of division. He felt lost, caught between his love for his siblings and the loss of the father who had held them all together. Of the things left by his dad, a letter addressed to him that he didn't let his siblings know about. His father had given him everything, the house and most of the inheritance. Part of him wanted to share it equally with his siblings. It seemed fair, a way to heal the rift that had formed. But now, reading Tom's letter, he felt a wave of conflict. His father believed he deserved this for all the sacrifices he had made while caring for him. Tom's words struck him deeply. "Please respect my wishes," it said. "I know your kind heart will want to split this inheritance, but I ask you not to." Liam could almost hear his father's voice in those lines, filled with love and concern. Liam felt tears prick at his eyes. He had suffered so much during his father's illness, and he remembered the loneliness he had felt when his siblings had drifted away. He had hoped that sharing the inheritance would help them reconnect, but now he was faced with the reality of his father's wishes. He didn't want to go against what Tom wanted. The thought of disobeying his father's last wishes filled him with dread. He knew how important it was to Tom that the family remained connected. With this letter, everything was clearer. Liam took a deep breath, knowing that he had to honor his father's wishes, even if it meant facing the hurt feelings of his siblings. Liam took a deep breath and sent a message. "How about we meet at Dad's house? I think it would be good for all of us to talk and remember him together." He watched as the 3 little dots appeared, indicating that Sarah was typing. A moment later, she replied, "That sounds like a good idea. I'll ask Michael and Emma." "Let's do it." Relief washed over Liam. The conversation would be difficult, but it was a start. As he prepared for the gathering, he felt a sense of purpose returning. His father's wishes weighed heavily on him, but he knew that finding a way to honor Tom's memory while also addressing the tension among his siblings was essential. The day of the meeting arrived, and Liam felt a mix of nerves and determination. His siblings had agreed to come over, and he sensed the tension in the air as they entered the house. It felt heavy, like a storm was brewing, and he couldn't shake the feeling that they had come prepared for a fight. Once everyone settled in, it didn't take long for the conversation to heat up. They quickly launched into how unfair the will was, insisting that everyone should get an equal share of the inheritance. The eldest sibling suggested that they sell the house, too, splitting the money equally among them. He thought about all the nights he had spent caring for his father, the sacrifices he had made, and how lonely it had been. He had lost his job because he couldn't balance work with caring for Tom, and now they wanted to erase everything that had happened. He could feel the anger rising in him. "I'm not going to split anything," he said firmly, standing up. "I need to respect Dad's wishes. He wanted me to have the house and the majority of the inheritance." He pulled out the letter, ready to show them what their father had really meant, but before he could finish, one of his siblings snatched the letter from his hands. "This is ridiculous," she shouted, her face flushed with anger. She tore the letter in half, throwing the pieces at him before storming out, shouting that she wouldn't let this stand and would take him to court. The tension in the room shattered as others began to leave, too. Liam felt a mix of betrayal and heartbreak. How could they not understand? The eldest sibling stayed behind, looking remorseful. "I'm sorry, Liam," he said quietly. "I support your decision. I didn't mean for you to suffer while taking care of Dad. We were selfish for ignoring your messages." I see now how that probably affected his health. Liam could see the regret in his brother's eyes, and it made him feel a little better, even if it didn't erase the hurt. "I just wish we could have been a family," Liam replied, his voice heavy with emotion. He couldn't help but feel a pang of envy that his brother had spent so much time away from their father. As the last sibling left, the air in the house felt even heavier. The weight of their choices hung around him like a dark cloud. He was left alone, wondering if he had made the right decision. Had he truly honored his father's wishes, or had he just driven his family apart? The uncertainty gnawed at him, and he felt more alone than ever.
Thank you for watching this video. If you made it this far, please consider subscribing. I post stories like this on the regular. See you on the next one.